For so long, I was told I was being ungrateful, that I was the problem, that my perception of things was wrong. I started to believe it. But sharing these stories, hearing from others who've been through similar things, it helps me remember that my experience was real. My pain was valid. If you've ever felt gaslit or manipulated or made to feel crazy in your own home, I see you. You're not alone. Please consider subscribing if this story resonates with you. My husband Michael died on a Thursday afternoon in October 2018. He was 51 years old. We'd been married for 26 years. The doctors said it was a pulmonary embolism, a blood clot that traveled to his lungs and killed him before the ambulance even arrived. One moment, he was sitting on our couch in our house in Boulder, Colorado, watching a documentary about World War II. The next moment, he was on the floor, not breathing, and I was on the phone with 911 screaming for them to help me while I did chest compressions that I barely remembered how to do from a CPR class I'd taken 15 years earlier. They couldn't save him. I remember the paramedic, a young woman with red hair pulled back in a tight ponytail, putting her hand on my shoulder and saying, "I'm sorry, he's gone." And I remember thinking that gone was such a strange word for it, like he'd left for the store and would be back any minute. But he wasn't coming back. Michael was dead at 51, and I was 49 and suddenly alone in a way I'd never been before. The funeral was surreal. I moved through it like I was underwater, everything muffled and slow and not quite real. Our son David flew in from Seattle, where he worked as a software engineer. He was 24, engaged, building a life on the other side of the country. He stayed for a week, helped me with the paperwork and the bills and the hundreds of decisions that come with death. Then he had to go back. He had a job, a fiancé, responsibilities. I understood. But watching him drive away from the house felt like losing someone else all over again. My sister Cheryl called me every day that first week. She lived in Denver, about 40 minutes away, worked as a dental hygienist. She was 3 years older than me, had never married, no kids. We'd been close growing up, but had drifted apart in adulthood the way siblings sometimes do, seeing each other at holidays, occasional phone calls, but not much beyond that. But after Michael died, she was there. She came to the funeral. She called to check on me. She brought groceries when I couldn't bring myself to go to the store. It felt good to have someone care, to not be completely alone. 2 weeks after the funeral, she showed up at my house in the late afternoon. I was in the living room, still in my pajamas, even though it was almost 5 p.m., staring at the television without really watching it. I'd barely moved in days. The grief was physical, a weight pressing down on my chest that made everything exhausting. "Claire?" Cheryl said, letting herself in with the spare key I'd given her. "This can't continue." "What can't continue?" I asked vaguely. "This." She gestured around the room. There were dishes in the sink, unopened mail piled on the counter, laundry in baskets I hadn't bothered to fold. "You're falling apart." "My husband just died, Cheryl." "I know, and I'm so sorry. But you can't just give up. You have to keep going." "I am keeping going." "You're sitting in your pajamas at 5 in the afternoon in a house that looks like a disaster zone." I felt the sting of shame. She was right. I had let things slide, but I didn't have the energy to care. "I have an idea," Cheryl said, sitting down beside me. "What if I moved in for a while, just temporarily? I could help you get back on your feet, make sure you're eating, keep the house running. It would just be until you're feeling stronger." I looked at her. She was wearing jeans and a cream-colored sweater, her dark hair cut in a neat bob. She looked put together and capable, and I felt like a mess in comparison. "Move in?" "Just for a few months. My lease is up in December anyway, and I've been thinking about finding a new place. This way I could help you, save some money on rent, and we could keep each other company. What do you think?" It made sense, in theory. The house did feel too big and too empty. Having someone there might make the grief less suffocating. And Cheryl was family. She was trying to help. "Okay," I said, "if you really don't mind." "I don't mind. We're sisters. We take care of each other." She moved in the following weekend. It started small. She took the guest bedroom on the second floor, the one at the end of the hall with the blue quilt and the window that looked out over the backyard. She brought a few suitcases of clothes, some boxes of personal items. It was temporary, she reminded me, just until I got back on my feet. At first, it was nice. She cooked dinner every night, actual meals, not the frozen pizzas and cereal I'd been surviving on. She did the dishes. She organized the mail and helped me respond to sympathy cards and thank you notes that I couldn't face writing. She went with me to the lawyer's office to start dealing with Michael's estate. She was there, and that helped. But then things started to shift. It was small at first, little comments. "You know, Claire, you really should shower today." Or, "Don't you think it's time to wash those sheets? It's been 2 weeks." She wasn't wrong exactly, but the way she said it made me feel like a child being scolded. Then she started rearranging things. I came downstairs one morning to find that she'd reorganized the kitchen cabinets. "I moved the dishes to the cabinet by the sink," she explained cheerfully. "It makes more sense that way, more efficient." But Michael and I had kept the dishes in the cabinet by the stove for 26 years. That was where they belonged. I didn't say anything, though. It seemed petty to complain about dish placement when she was just trying to help. She cleaned out the coat closet next, then the pantry, then Michael's office. "Wait," I said when I found her in there, boxing up his books. "What are you doing?" "I'm organizing," she said. "This room is a mess, Claire. When's the last time anyone even used it?" "Michael used it. That's his office." "Michael's gone, honey." Her voice was gentle but firm. "You can't just leave everything as a shrine to him. You have to move forward." "It's been a month, Cheryl." "I know, but sitting around crying isn't going to bring him back." I felt like she'd slapped me. "I'm not sitting around crying." "Yes, you are. You're stuck, and I'm trying to help you get unstuck." I left the room. I didn't have the energy to argue, but something had shifted. Her help was starting to feel less like support and more like control. November came. Cheryl's lease ended, and she moved the rest of her belongings into the house. The guest room filled up with her furniture, her clothes, her things. It started to feel less like she was visiting and more like she lived there, which, I guess, she did. "I'm thinking about repainting the living room," she said one evening in late November. We were sitting at the kitchen table eating the chicken stir-fry she'd made. "That beige color is so dated. Something lighter, maybe a gray?" "I like the beige," I said. "Really, it makes the room feel dark." "Michael and I painted it that color when we first moved in. 26 years ago, Claire. Times change, tastes change." "I don't want to repaint." She gave me a look, patient, long-suffering. "Okay, we don't have to repaint. I'm just trying to brighten things up a little." 2 days later, I came home from a therapy appointment to find her in the living room with paint samples taped to the wall. "I thought we weren't repainting," I said. "We're not. I'm just looking, exploring options." By December, she'd repainted the living room, a light gray that made everything feel cold and unfamiliar. I came downstairs one morning to find the room completely transformed and Cheryl cleaning brushes in the kitchen sink. "Surprise," she said. "I know you said you weren't sure about repainting, but I thought if I just did it, you'd see how much better it looks. And look, it really opens up the space, doesn't it?" I stared at the gray walls. They looked nothing like my home, nothing like the house Michael and I had built together. "You had no right," I said quietly. "Oh, come on, don't be dramatic. It's just paint. It's my house. And I live here too, Claire. I should have some say in how things look. That was the first time she'd said it out loud. I live here too, like she wasn't a temporary guest, like this was her home now, not just mine. I called David that night. I tried to explain what was happening, how Cheryl had moved in to help, but now she was taking over, changing things, making me feel like a visitor in my own house. Mom, he said carefully, are you sure you're not just, I don't know, projecting? Aunt Cheryl is trying to help. Maybe you're misinterpreting things because you're grieving. I'm not projecting, David. She repainted my living room without asking. Maybe she thought she was doing something nice. It's not nice if I didn't want it. Silence on the other end. Then, do you want me to talk to her? No, I don't know. Maybe I am overreacting. You've been through a lot, Mom. Grief does weird things to your brain. Just try to be patient with yourself and with Aunt Cheryl. She loves you. She's trying to help. I hung up feeling dismissed, like my feelings didn't matter, like I was being irrational. Maybe I was. Christmas came and went. Cheryl invited her friends over for a Christmas Eve party without asking me. They filled my house with noise and laughter, and I hid in my bedroom feeling like an intruder. When I came downstairs at one point to get water, one of her friends, a woman I'd never met, asked me if I was Cheryl's housekeeper. Cheryl laughed. No, this is my sister Claire. She lives here too. She lives here too. The phrase echoed in my head. When had the narrative shifted so that I was the guest? January brought new rules. Cheryl started posting sticky notes around the house. Please wipe down the counter after use. Shoes off at the door. Dishwasher runs at 9 p.m. Please load your dishes by then. I ignored the notes at first, but she started leaving them more frequently. On the bathroom mirror, please squeegee the shower after use to prevent mold. On the refrigerator, first in, first out, please check dates and use older items first. Cheryl, I said finally, what's with all the notes? I'm just trying to keep things organized, she said. The house runs more smoothly when everyone follows the same systems. I've been running this house for 26 years. It's always been fine. No offense, Claire, but look around. Things were not fine when I moved in. The place was falling apart. I'm just helping maintain some standards. Standards, like I was failing some test I didn't know I was taking. February, things escalated. I came home from the grocery store to find the locks had been changed. What the hell, Cheryl? I said, standing on my own front porch, unable to get inside. She opened the door, looking surprised. Oh, did I forget to give you the new key? Sorry, I had the locks changed for security. There've been some break-ins in the neighborhood. Without asking me? It's for both our safety, Claire. I didn't think you'd mind. She handed me a new key, and I took it with shaking hands. This was wrong. All of this was wrong. But every time I tried to articulate why, she had an explanation that made me sound unreasonable. I started spending more time out of the house. I'd go to coffee shops and sit for hours with a book, not because I wanted to read, but because being in my own home had become unbearable. When I was there, Cheryl was always watching me, correcting me, sighing when I didn't do things her way. You're loading the dishwasher wrong, she'd say. Or, that's not where the scissors go. Or, can you please not leave your shoes there? I felt like I was walking on eggshells, constantly anxious about doing something wrong. In March, I finally worked up the courage to tell her she needed to move out. We were in the kitchen. She was making dinner, some kind of salmon dish with asparagus. I was sitting at the table pretending to read the newspaper. Cheryl, I said, we need to talk. What's up? She didn't look at me, focused on the fish. I think it's time for you to find your own place. She stopped moving, set down the spatula, turned to look at me. Excuse me? This was supposed to be temporary. It's been 5 months. I appreciate everything you've done, but I need my space back. Her face went through several emotions: surprise, hurt, and then anger. You need your space back, she repeated flatly. Yes, after everything I've done for you. I know, and I'm grateful. Are you? Because it doesn't sound like it. It sounds like you're kicking me out. I'm not kicking you out. I'm just saying it's time. Where am I supposed to go, Claire? I gave up my apartment to help you. I've spent months cooking for you, cleaning for you, keeping this house from falling apart while you wallow in your grief. And this is the thanks I get? Cheryl, you're being selfish. You know that, right? Completely selfish. I've put my entire life on hold to take care of you, and you're just going to throw me out. I felt the familiar twist of guilt in my stomach. Was I being selfish? She had helped me. She had given up her apartment. I'm not trying to be selfish, I said weakly. I need to figure out how to live on my own again. Fine. Her voice was ice. I'll start looking for a place, but don't come crying to me when you can't handle being alone. She moved out 6 weeks later, in late April. By then, the house barely felt like mine anymore. She'd repainted 3 rooms, replaced the living room furniture with pieces she'd picked out, changed the curtains, rearranged the artwork. Walking through the house felt like walking through a stranger's home. The morning she left, I felt relief so intense it was almost physical. I watched her load boxes into her car, and I smiled and thanked her and promised we'd stay in touch, and the moment her car disappeared around the corner, I went inside and locked the door and cried. But they weren't sad tears. They were tears of release, of freedom. I started reclaiming the house immediately. I repainted the living room back to the beige Michael and I had chosen. I moved the dishes back to where they belonged. I took down all her little rules and sticky notes and threw them away. I put Michael's books back in his office and sat in his chair and let myself miss him without someone telling me I needed to move on. It took months to feel like the house was mine again. Cheryl tried to call several times, but I didn't answer. I wasn't ready. Maybe I'd never be ready. David came to visit in June. He walked through the house, noticing the changes. You repainted, he said. Yeah, back to the way it was. Mom, Aunt Cheryl called me. She's really upset. She feels like you pushed her away after everything she did for you. Is that what she said? She said she gave up her apartment to help you, and you kicked her out the moment you didn't need her anymore. I took a breath. David, your Aunt Cheryl didn't move in to help me. She moved in because she wanted a place to live, and she spent 5 months slowly taking over my house and making me feel like a guest in my own home. I didn't kick her out. I asked her to find her own place like we'd originally agreed. He was quiet for a moment. She made it sound different. I know she did. She's very good at making things sound different than they are. Why didn't you tell me it was that bad? I tried. You told me I was grieving and misinterpreting things. He looked ashamed. I'm sorry, Mom. I should have listened better. It's okay. You were trying to help too. We sat on the back porch drinking iced tea and watching the sun set behind the mountains, and I told him everything about the rules and the changes and the way Cheryl had made me doubt my own perceptions, about how alone I'd felt even with someone living in the house, about how I'd lost Michael and then almost lost myself too. I'm really sorry, David said again. I had no idea. How could you? You were in Seattle, and Cheryl is very convincing. Are you okay now? I thought about it. I'm getting there. Losing Michael was the worst thing that's ever happened to me. But Cheryl moving in and taking over, that was a different kind of loss. It was losing my sense of home, my sense of self. I'm still rebuilding that. What can I do to help? Just believe me when I tell you, something is wrong. Even if it doesn't make sense to you, even if the other person is family, just trust that I know my own experience. I will. I promise. It's been 4 years now. I'm 53 years old. I still live in the house in Boulder, the one Michael and I bought when David was 2. I've made it mine again, repainted it, rearranged it, filled it with things that make me happy, instead of things someone else thought I should have. I've started dating again. Nothing serious yet, but it's nice to have dinner with someone, to talk and laugh, and remember what it feels like to connect with another person. I talk to David every week. He got married last year, and his wife is wonderful. They're talking about having kids, and I'm excited to be a grandmother, to have new life and new love in my world. I haven't spoken to Cheryl since she moved out. She's tried to reach out a few times, birthday cards, emails apologizing, and asking if we can talk. I haven't responded. Maybe that makes me a bad person. Maybe I should forgive her and move on. But the truth is, I don't think she understands what she did. She still thinks she was helping, that she sacrificed for me, that I was ungrateful. She doesn't see that she took advantage of my grief to insinuate herself into my home and my life, that she slowly eroded my autonomy until I felt powerless in my own house. And I don't have the energy to explain it to her. I don't owe her that explanation. I learned something important during those 5 months, that help can be a weapon, that someone can offer support while actually taking control, that I'm doing this for your own good can be a way to justify overriding someone else's choices and boundaries. I learned that grief makes you vulnerable, and some people, even people who love you, will exploit that vulnerability without even realizing they're doing it. And I learned that reclaiming your life after someone has tried to take it over is possible. Hard, but possible. My house is mine again. My life is mine again. I make my own rules, wash my own dishes however I want, leave my shoes wherever they land. And if that makes me a bad housekeeper by Cheryl's standards, I genuinely don't care. Michael died, and I thought I'd lost everything. And then Cheryl moved in, and I almost lost what was left. But I survived both losses. I'm still here, still standing, still building a life that belongs to me and no one else. That's what matters. Not revenge, not vindication, not even reconciliation with my sister. What matters is that I know my own truth now. I know what happened, even if she doesn't. I know that my feelings were valid, my boundaries were reasonable, and I had every right to ask her to leave. And I know that I'm stronger than I thought. Strong enough to grieve, strong enough to reclaim my space, strong enough to keep going even when everything feels impossible. That's my victory. The house with beige walls and dishes in the cabinet by the stove. The life I'm building one small decision at a time. The knowledge that I survived, and I'm okay, and I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be.